going to be playing a game known as Star Wars TIE Fighter. It's the second game in the XWing series of games. The most recent release is Star Wars Squadrons, which came out about 2 weeks ago, just under. And TIE Fighter was released in 1994, a year after the first title in the series, XWing. So we'll get into it. So right there before you, you see the stars of the opening scenes of the game, the opening screen cutscenes. So Star Wars TIE Fighter was released in 1994. The lead designer was Lawrence Holland, and he was the lead designer on all the X-Wing series of games, apart from the most recent and also the spin-off, which was the Rogue Squadron spin-off. You should be able to see a screenshot of some stars there. I'll just get the game going now. Good old LucasArts. And there it is, the famous crawl. As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's any Star Wars games that don't have this. It's kind of a requirement. It's not authentic unless they have it. So the series started in 1993 with X-Wing, and then 1994 with this game, TIE Fighter. Then in 1997 there was X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, and in 1999 was the last game in the sort of the core series, I guess, which was XWing Alliance. There was the offshoot series as well, Rogue Squadron, which was also released on the Nintendo 64 and Nintendo GameCube. And then you've got the most recent release, Squadrons. Nice, love it, Gav. I was always a big fan of the opening cutscenes of these old games. They're awesome.
The Empire is on the verge of success. Soon, peace and order will be restored throughout the galaxy. Even now, our capable forces, led by Darth Vader, are striking back at the rebel insurgents.
So I first played...
unprepared for our attack. Signal Vice Admiral Thrawn to launch his TIE squadrons immediately.
Vice Admiral Thrawn was a character from the Heir to the Empire series, written by Timothy Zahn.
This rebel stronghold has no hope of escape. Commence the attack.
Yes, sir.
And for a long time, the Heir to the Empire series was sort of considered the unofficial sequel trilogy. Really great trio of books, worth a read if you're a Star Wars fan. So I first played TIE Fighter in 1994. My brother got a brand new PC, and one of the games was TIE Fighter. And I'm still holding that game manual right in my hands right now. It's pretty cool. It's got a sort of short story in there. The whole, I guess, instruction manual is told in character of a character called Marek Steele, who's a TIE fighter. And it's got all sorts of little, sort of immersion type details in there, like a, technical readouts of all the enemy fighters and that sort of thing. It's really cool. Okay, so here we go. I'm currently using a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro joystick, and I'm running this in DOSBox. This was a little thing that you had to do back then for any game that used a joystick, was to calibrate
Enter
them.
your name, pilot.
Alright. These guys won't let me in if I try and go without logging in. So I'll use the top ace profile. No, I did not do that profile myself. So all the X-Wing and TIE Fighter both come with a profile called Top Ace, and it's essentially all the missions are completed for you. So if you want to go in and, you know, play back old missions and that sort of thing, you can. So here we have the concourse. As you can see, it's all quite, you know, immersive. And, you know, you've got your stormtroopers standing around. It's really cool. There's the training simulator, the combat chamber where you can play back old missions. There's a tech room. This is really cool, and it's got readouts of all the craft. And then if you sort of wait, you can see all the details for each of them. So there's 3 versions of this game you can play today. The original release that came out in 1994. There's the 1995 Collector's CD-ROM edition, which is what I'm playing. And then there's the 1998 Special Edition. So I think this is the best edition because it features the iMuse music. And the iMuse music is basically a sort of reactive soundtrack. The 1998 Special Edition, it had better graphics, better textures, but it didn't have the sort of reactive soundtrack. It had CD audio, so it wasn't quite as, you know, orally pleasing. Anyway, we'll just jump into a quick little mission. And there we go. So it's pretty old looking, as you can see. And the goal in this mission is to take out that little probe, but we've got some rebels that show up.
Take out that rebel spy probe, Alpha 1.
So the one advantage of the 95 edition is it had increased resolution. So this runs at 640 by 480 resolution. The original ran at 320 by 400. And here we've got Red 1. I'll just boost my laser recharge a bit. No, my allies sorted them out for me. So these old games were pretty brutal, as you'll probably see. I'll probably get killed in this mission once the A-Wings show up, because they're so damn fast. Oh, there they are. But yeah, let's give it a go. So TIE Fighter was, for a very long time, it was an abandonware game. In other words, there's no way to, I guess, legally acquire it. And it wasn't for sale anymore. And then a few years ago, Good Old Games managed to secure the Star Wars game license. Or the distribution license.
Incoming missile.
And once they secured the license, they started selling some old Star Wars titles. I always hated the A-Wings because they're small and they're fast. Ooh. So I guess not quite on par with maybe Squadron's graphics. There we go. Rebel scum down. But back in 1994, this was mind-blowing. Anyway, as soon as this appeared on GOG a couple of years ago, I grabbed it straight away. This was one of my favourite titles of all time. I still think that there hasn't really been a space sim that sort of matched it. And it's got a real sort of authentic Star Wars feel. I don't know if that cut off just then in my panic. So the recent release of Squadrons has 14 single-player missions in it. And TIE Fighter has, in the original release, it had 7 tours. And then in the expansion, it had an additional 3 tours, making up a total of about 76 missions. Bit of a difference in content. Although, to be fair, Squadrons is primarily a multiplayer title, whereas TIE Fighter was sort of a single-player game. The equivalent of Squadrons would probably be XWing versus TIE Fighter, which was released in 1997, and it was a multiplayer-focused offshoot of the XWing and TIE Fighter games. For a while, I was actually in a Squadron online Marauder wing back in the day, and I flew for the Empire, of course. Empire's just cooler, let's be honest. Let's get that probe. So, iconic missions in X-Wing, and it's worth playing X-Wing if you are really interested in these old games. X-Wing has the Death Star trench run. Whee! Here we go.
Secondary mission objectives completed. The Emperor will be pleased. Be careful. You got hit.
Ah, yes. I've completed the mission. And somehow managed to survive. So, as I was saying, the X-Wing game, the first in the series, had the Death Star trench run in it. So that was a pretty amazing mission. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter was a sort of multiplayer-focused game. And then X-Wing Alliance, that had the second Death Star run. So you actually had to fly the Millennium Falcon into the second Death Star, and it's one of the most hair-raising missions I've ever played, and incredibly difficult. So this was the campaign menu. So you'd go into this little lobby and you'd choose your system, and then let's do the Hoth system. And each of the campaigns would start with a little, intro video of, what the focus of this particular tour was about. Old games make me sad as well, Stu. Just to see, I guess, where we are now compared to where we were.
But we are willing to hear your offer.
There's a lot of nostalgia in that, I suppose, but there's also microtransactions were not a thing, monetization was not a thing.
Interesting, Admiral. We have great need for officers of your caliber. Here is what I propose.
Don't know what happened there. Let's go to this system. Okay, yeah, here we go. So this is a cool little aspect of TIE Fighter that's think, missing from the newer one. You had this sort of authentic briefing.
TIE Advanced from Alpha Group will relieve Delta Group by assuming their escort.
So you had all these sort of, you know, kind of authentic feeling
The Dreadnought
briefings.
Dargon is transporting a group. The Dargon needs your protection to reach.
And then before your mission, you could talk to this officer. You know, he'd give you a bit of a
Imperial forces from the Star
rundown
Destroyer
on the
Galley.
mission.
You will fly a TIE Advanced.
Let's see how we go. So this is the TIE Advanced. I'm not sure if it's in the new game, but this was basically a TIE fighter that was only in the games, not in the movies at all. And it was the first of the TIE fighters to have shielding and the ability to launch missiles. In the lore, it's the TIE fighter is based on the TIE fighter that Darth Vader flies in the first movie at the Battle of Yavin. I didn't actually listen to the briefing, so I'm not sure what I have to do.
The Dargon is all yours.
I guess I need to defend it.
Glad you're here.
So I've seen a few comments for Squadrons about players, you know, struggling to manage their power systems. Comes natural to veterans of the series, balancing your laser recharge with your shield recharge and your speed. And it was actually sort of, I guess, the basis for a lot of follow-on space sims, like the Free Space series, even Elite Dangerous, where you have to balance your engines, shields, and weapons. Here we go, more A-Wings.
Attention, rebel craft entering the area.
Let's test out these missiles. Nice. So some of you might have played the spin-off of this series, which was Rogue Squadron. It was on the Nintendo 64 and also on PC. And it was a bit more of a, I guess, an arcadey type game. The perspective was behind the ship, and there was a lot of surface missions. So the first mission was on the surface of Tatooine, for example. Really fun game, very different feel.
Alpha 1, mission critical.
That one is also on GOG as well.
Alpha 1, the Dargon is taking damage.
And let's take out these. The B-Wings are sort of the advanced rebel bomber. That's not a nice sound. Gotta balance those shields and boost shield recharge. So if you do decide to get into one of the games in the X-Wing series, other than the recently released Squadrons, I'd highly recommend TIE Fighter. However, XWing Alliance is also really great.
Target destroyed.
XWing Alliance is a little bit harder to get running, just because it was released, I guess with these older games, they run in DOSBox, which is a DOS emulator that's tried and tested. Whereas XWing Alliance was released during the sort of Windows 98 and Windows XP era. And that's a little bit harder to get functioning on modern PCs. If you do get into XWing Alliance, I heavily recommend there's a mod called the XWing Alliance Upgrade, and it updates all the models in the game to these super high definition models. It looks fantastic once you've upgraded it. As you can see, this is why I hate A-Wings, because they are very slippery targets. Time to finish him off with a missile. If he can stay still. Nope. So I don't know if you're listening to the soundtrack much, but you can sort of hear the battle music right now. And as soon as the battle is over, it sort of goes into a bit more of a relaxed sort of tune. That's something you miss when you play the 1998 version of this. You get much better audio, which is sort of a classic John Williams soundtrack, but you don't get the sort of interactive, atmospheric audio like you do here. There's actually a fair bit of plot and intrigue in TIE Fighter. So the missions sort of build up quite nicely, and they sort of tell the story of the Empire after the Battle of Hoth. And at one point, there is an entire tour where an Imperial officer in charge of a Star Destroyer goes rogue and joins the rebels. So that's a cool little part of the game where you're sort of flying in Imperial craft up against other Imperial craft. And then one of my highlights was definitely a mission in one of the later campaigns where you're testing out a new type of TIE fighter, the TIE Defender. And your wingman in the TIE Defender is none other than Darth Vader. I mean, getting to fly a TIE fighter alongside Darth Vader, it doesn't really get much better than that. Even if it is just a substandard voice actor that's filling in. And I think that's everyone done. Oh no, we've got this Corvette. Let's finish him off.
Target destroyed.
Oh, he's done. Look at those awesome explosions. Nothing like it. And there was that little dip in the music just then, before these B-Wings arrived. So that interactive or that responsive music, there was a system designed by LucasArts called iMuse, and they used it in quite a lot of their games actually, not just the X-Wing series, but they used it in some of their adventure games as well. Sadly, LucasArts it was bought out by Electronic Arts in the early 2000s, I think it was. and it's little more than a holding company now. It still exists, but it exists only to sort of license LucasArts IPs. I think there's only about 5 people that work for LucasArts these days. Whereas back in the mid-90s, LucasArts had heaps of employees, and they were, for a long time, regarded as one of the best devs on PC. Absolutely, boo EA. They have a horrible habit of buying up wonderful devs and then just shelving them and putting their intellectual property on ice until they find a way that they can monetize it. It's not just EA, but it's they're probably the worst offender. That's how we're going. Oh, he's off. He's off to hyperspace.
Superb work, Alpha 1.
Oh,
Primary
go
mission
me.
objectives completed. The rebels have failed in their attempt to rescue the prisoners. Good job, Alpha 1.
Okay, let's check the mission objective. Nice. And we'll go to hyperspace and... Uh-oh. Calamari Cruiser. That's probably a little bonus objective. All the missions have little hidden and bonus objectives that you can complete. I'm not up for going up against a Calamari Cruiser on my own. It's a ridiculous name. I don't know why they went with that, but oh well. And there we are. A little follow-up with my officer.
Her crew and her cargo of prisoners were all saved from capture by the rebels.
Excellent.
There is good reason to believe that this group of prisoners...
And that was sort of how every mission finished off. And occasionally in that door right there, there would be this sort of like evil-looking dude that was personal servant of the Emperor. And he would, you know, be giving you a secret mission, essentially. Now, let's have a look at my medals. Oh, no medals. Oh, there we go. So yeah, in the escape menu of the game, this is where sort of all your medals show up. Which is kind of cool. You get little pips for completing the different bonus objectives and that sort of stuff. I guess these are sort of these proto-achievements. And then, of course, there's the secret achievements. Yes, I am the Emperor's Reach in the Secret Order of the Emperor. And then you had your little record there, so track your accuracy with your weapons over the game and that sort of thing. So it's an excellent little game. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching, and yeah, it was great fun playing one of my favourite games of all time. Definitely my favourite space sim of all time. And next week, I'll be back on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And next week, we'll be playing Commander Keen for Secret of the Oracle. So, the best Commander Keen. And I will probably die a lot in that because Commander Keen is incredibly difficult. Seriously, I don't know how I had those reflexes back then. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and yeah, I'll catch you next week.